What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some big news that's coming out between the US and China as we have a trade agreement and what President Trump said about that. Also, I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have CPI data coming out. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you guys sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends on June 3rd. You'll also qualify for an 8.1% APY in uninvested cash, not to mention free level 2 data, which is very useful for understanding market sentiment, liquidity zones, and what's happening with the overall options chains. So check out my link down below. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So I just wanted to mention that as far as SPY is going, okay, we're looking more bullish here. As you guys know, we started off way down here at 564 on Friday. Then SPY gapped up and started to push for 583 as we're looking more bullish. On the QQQ, we started off on Friday at this 487 area. Now we're at 507, up 4% for the day. The market exploded after we got some big news. So what's going on? Let's break down this news. We had U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent coming out, and they've made some big announcements. They were saying over the weekend there's going to be a big trade deal coming with China, and they made so much progress. And lo and behold, we did get a trade agreement. Although it's not permanent, it is a big step in the right direction. So why am I saying this? Basically, Greer said that the US is going to be cutting its tariffs on Chinese goods from being as high as 145% to 30%. In return, China is going to be reducing its tariffs on US imports from 125% to 10%. That's a big change compared to before. However, the lower tariffs are going to be remaining in place for 90 days. It's not going to be a forever thing, it's just for 90 days. So just keep that in mind to cool off tensions and allow for more negotiations to take place. That's why they're doing this. They mentioned there were substantial products going on when it comes to disputing the trade, and then simultaneously, they were moving forward in a spirit of mutual opening, continued communication, cooperation, and mutual respect. So that's some big news that came out. Looking at President Trump's tariffs now, this is what they look like. So when it comes to tariffs on China, there's a 30% tariff max during a 90-day window. There is one thing that's a little confusing, and that's the fact that some products weren't included in the deal. I'm seeing some news that small packages from China may still be subjected to 120% tariffs. Just some small packages. It's not all of the products. It's just a small amount of them. I don't know for sure, though. We have to wait and see what happens, what is confirmed, at least for now. We'll see if President Trump and his team mention something about this. So I still think there's an unknown factor about that. But besides this, from what I'm seeing, the large majority of products are going to be subjected to 30% tariffs or less for a 90-day window. On top of this, for more updates, they also have the benchmark 10% tariff that's going to remain. And then we also have duties on Canada and Mexico at 25% if the products are not covered by the USMCA regulations. Then we have a 10% tariff on energy, 25% on steel and aluminum, 25% on auto parts, and then foreign made vehicles, with the exception for the last three being the UK, which is subjected to like 10%. So keep that in mind. These last three are a little bit cheaper for the UK. But that's the latest update on President Trump's agreements. Keep in mind that this is very important news because of the fact that now this could be changing supply chains. And then the question is, will the European Union be next? I'm seeing headlines about that as well. So supply chains have been disrupted, and we could be looking to see costs go down, which could help them bring up supply. In turn, I think some sources suggest that the recession that could have been coming may be delayed as a result of this change. But we'll see about that. For now, this is a very good piece of news because it gives these companies lots of time to reevaluate their positions, and it gives the US more time to negotiate with China. So that's a very big piece of news. Lastly, what did President Trump say? President Trump said that China has agreed to open to American businesses as they have slashed most of the tariffs temporarily for each other's goods. President Trump said that that's maybe the most important thing to come out of the trade talks, and that it's very important. President Trump said that we have reset our trade negotiations with China, but he did warn that we need to get a long-term deal. That's what he was talking about, a long-term deal. This deal is only for 90 days. Let me just look at the part that shows that. One second. It's remaining in place for 90 days. Okay. It's not a forever thing. President Trump is saying that no, He wants a longer term deal. And once the 90 days are up, the tariffs could go back up on China. He did warn about that, but he did say at the same time, even if they go up, he does not want them to go up to 145%. He wants them to remain below that. So that's what President Trump is warning about. He wants a long term deal. So right now, a long-term deal doesn't just happen overnight. This is a temporary deal, but the good thing is that it opens more time for the US representatives to continue to negotiate with the Chinese officials. So that's the most important thing so far. President Trump also mentioned over the weekend he thinks that the US has been screwed over for too long, losing $5 to $6 billion a day, and the US will finally come out on top in his words. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. This is just what he is saying so far, and the stock market loves it. That's why the market is pushing the way it is. And as a reminder, guys, I'm going to say it one more time. When Jerome Powell was speaking on Wednesday, SPY was trading sideways. When President Trump started speaking on Thursday, the market made a big move. And then with this change in trade policy, the market exploded, which goes to show how impactful trade policy is, how much it affects the stock market. Make sure you guys are prepared for that, at least moving forward. So that's your update on President Trump. He didn't really say a whole lot yet. He may say more things over the next couple of days, so keep your guys' ears open for that. Besides that, tomorrow is going to be another very important day. It's going to be Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. The most important thing is at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour before the stock market opens, we have the very important CPI data coming out. We're expecting core CPI to actually go a little bit up month over month to 0.2 to 0.3%. Core CPI year over year is supposed to be at 2.8%, the same as before. The overall inflation rate month over month should go up to 0.3%, but all items, inflation, CPI year over year should be around that 2.4 to 2.5% area. So for the most part, we're expecting the year over year data to be very similar, but month over month, we're expecting a slight increase. So we'll see about that just to be safe. Looking at some data here, you guys could see that when we look at crude futures, so this chart is basically when you look at CPI versus crude futures. And what you'll see is that they tend to be heavily correlated with one another. And what you'll see that's good for CPI is that actually when you look at the month of April, right? So if you look at like March and April, there was a downtrend that was starting for crude, and we saw CPI sort of follow that trend, at least on a year over year basis. For the month of April, crude went down from 68 to about 63, a little bit under 63. That's a sign that CPI might come in as expected, if not lower. And then also, the thing that's a little different is gas prices went up just a little bit. So this is not the best. Gas prices are up on average 7 cents per gallon in the US for all formulations. So this is important news because it suggests that we have kind of some mixed data. Crude went down a bit, but gas prices went up a little bit. So as a result, this could have a mixed effect on CPI. Some things could be a little bit elevated, some things could come short. We'll see about that just to be safe, but that's what I'm warning you guys about. The fear and greed index is currently at greed right now. Momentum is currently at extreme fear, but it's going to likely become less fearful as time goes on. The put to call option ratio is dipping as more sellers are stepping out, and we're seeing a lot of buyers stepping in, closing those shorts, pushing the market higher. We're seeing basically a short squeeze continuing, and then simultaneously you're seeing the VIX dipping. There's no sign of a bottom quite yet, so the market is still technically bullish. Last but not least, this is what the earnings calendar looks like. Very quiet, minor earnings for now. If you look at like JD.com, it's going to be tomorrow. Honda in the morning, and then a few more, but nothing too serious. So with that being said, let's break down these charts in more details. What's going to likely happen for tomorrow? Well, as you guys know, it depends on CPI and also any trade deals, any updates involving the US and China, and what President Trump says. But it's quite simple to really distinguish what's about to happen. So you're going to be looking at this. If we get a very good CPI, if CPI is cool and we get lots of optimism, we're looking for a test of 585 way up here. Now we need to break 585 to remain bullish. If you want to remain bullish, we're looking for an attempt to go up towards like 590 if we get a good CPI. If we get a bad CPI, if CPI is kind of hot, you're looking at this 580 area. If it does not hold, we're going to be looking for a retest of the lows. If not, a move all the way down to 575. That's going to be around my target if we get a hot CPI. Well, in my opinion, I do want to give you guys a warning that there's a slight bearish divergence developing on SPY. And then on the 4-hour time frame, We do have a very tough resistance at 585. So my fear is that 585 might be a little bit tough to break, at least historically. So I do think that it's possible during the pre-market, maybe we kind of come down like this and start pushing for 585. But I don't know if we're going to break this, because if we don't break 585, I do anticipate we're going to be dipping a little bit. If we break 585, we're looking for a push. So watch for that test going into tomorrow. Can we break 585 and remain bullish or not? That's what I'm going to be looking for as time goes on. In case we don't, we could come down off this bearish divergence. So please be prepared just in case we reject off 585. It's going to be a very tough area. Now, can I make promises? I can't, guys. It depends on CPI. I always wish I was a genie, fortune teller, or whatever that could predict everything. But in this case, I can't predict CPI, so it depends on that. I am going to give you guys a warning about this bearish divergence on SPY. Although we could go a little higher for 585, we'll see if we break past this or not. If we can't, we could churn, so please be very careful. On the triple Q, I'm seeing a tough resistance close to like almost 510, maybe a little bit under that. Just under 510, so maybe like 509 is where we have a tough resistance. So maybe I could redraw this a bit. But my point is that we have to be very, very careful with the way in which things are looking. So as time goes on, we're looking at this resistance right up here, the 509 to 510 range. So from what I'm seeing, okay, if you're bullish on the QQQ, let's just say we get a very, very good CPI, you want to see us break and hold above the 510-ish area. If we could break this, I think we push closer to like 515 almost for more upside, at least 512 to 515. If we're bearish after CPI, if we get a hot CPI, you want to see us lose 504. If that fails us, we're dipping back down towards 500. My prediction is, though, that we're going to be trying to fight this resistance near 510. Might go a little bit higher, but then there's a big bearish divergence forming even on the 30 minutes time frame, which makes me fear that this might push a bit and maybe slow down as the day goes on to kind of retest a low like this. So I might be looking for a move like this on the QQQ for tomorrow. So please heed my warning. I don't know for sure. It depends on CPI, but that's what I'm seeing. Now, the Russell pushed very hard in the morning, came down, it's making a lower high, which is not the best of signs. We could try to go a bit higher for like the 210 area if we get a good CPI. If we get a bad CPI, you want to lose 205, then come down to start filling this gap to at least 202. But my prediction is we go a little higher like this, then we could start to turn a bit more and get back down to like 205 or below. So be very careful as we're at these new levels. ES is technically bullish, but we need to hold above 5,900 to remain bullish. It is possible we go a little higher for like 5,880 to 5,900 in this range right here. I do think we might be testing this tomorrow. We need to hold above 5,900 to remain bullish to start pushing for like 5,950 plus. If we're bearish, you want to see us lose 5,800. If 5,800 fails us, we dump all the way down towards 5,750. So in my opinion, I think that's going into tomorrow, we push closer to like 5,880 to about 5,900 like this. But then there is this divergence forming on SPY if you look at the MACD and RSI. And I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of pop a bit and start to slow down as the day goes on to retest this low over here. We might be looking for a move like that based off this divergence. So please be very careful. On NQ, we pushed very nicely to this resistance at 21,000. We could go to 21,250 if that breaks. So break and hold 21,000. We're looking for 21,200. If we end up losing 20,725, we're looking for a dump back down towards 20,500. So it could go either way. However, I do think that we might try to retest the high 21,000. Not sure if we break this. We got to break 21,000 to remain bullish. If we come short, if we can't hold 21,000, I do think we kind of dip a little bit, especially with this divergence forming. So you want to be very, very careful with CPI coming out. Anything could happen, but I do want to give you guys a warning about this setup because of this bearish divergence, but be prepared for anything just to be safe. Bitcoin has an inverse head and shoulders, might see a small push back up towards 103,300, if not above, but then be careful because we have declining volume, and we'll see if Bitcoin slows down as time goes on. It's still doing a great job at holding up, but we have to get back above 105,000 to be bullish. We might push close to it, then slow down if we don't get that break. Now, for Tesla, here's the thing about Tesla. We could be very bullish because in June, we have the Robotaxi event. Now, could Tesla slow down a bit first before it starts to break out higher? We could see a big rally into like the much higher 300s. Before that happens, could we get a cool off on Tesla? Could we cool off on the indicators first before we get a much bigger break? The reason I say that is because I am seeing a divergence on the MACD and RSI. And then also, we did see not the best volume today. So from what I'm looking at, right, I would love to see Tesla get back above 325 to remain bullish. If we get a good CPI, we could go up there. If we don't get that break, we could cool off. If we lose 310, we're looking for a dip back down to the lower 300s, but then we could bounce off that anyways. So I do think Tesla's bullish approaching the robotaxi event, especially because we're green 80% in the month of June. But there is the possibility that if we don't get the best CPI or whatever the factor is, whether we pump and dump, if we do come down to fill this gap, then we could bounce like this. That's just one possibility. So that's what I'm seeing for Tesla. I'm not sure if we break 325 immediately. We need to break that to remain bullish. If we don't, we might cool off towards 310 and we'll see if we bounce. On Nvda, this is looking stronger than Tesla. We're actually continuing to push. I'm going to be looking for this high around 123 to potentially be tested for bullish. And if we break that, we will be going even higher for essentially to 125 or above. If we're bearish, you want to see us basically lose 120. If that fails us, we could be dumping back down towards 118. In my opinion, I think that we're looking a bit more bullish on Nvidia. If we break 123, we're looking for an attempt to push for 125 or above. For Apple's looking a bit more bullish. We're making higher lows right now. Now, the thing about Apple is that I'd be very careful here as we have a tough resistance near this, 212 to 215 area. I want to see us break 215 to remain bullish. If we had 215 and reject, we could come down like this if we're trying to break out later on. So that's always another possibility. But we'll see just to be safe depending on CPI. We're kind of choppy here near this 212 zone. So we could consolidate and we'll see if we come back down first before we see some kind of bounce. So keep that in mind. For Netflix, we have this imbalance over here back down towards this 1080 area. We have this rejection. This kind of looks like a head and shoulders. I did say that we might see a small dip in Netflix. We didn't get a bounce yet, though, although I would have hoped for that. So I might retest this low here on 1080 and we'll see if we bounce. So keep that in mind. For MSTR, it depends on CPI, of course. But the problem is that we got a rejection after some bad news came out. We basically pumped only to dump back down. So we have to hold 405. If we don't, we're looking for that gap fill for basically 393, and we'll see if we bounce. There is some weakness nonetheless in the chart. Celsius is bullish. I think that we could attempt to go higher. We're looking for a test of 36, and we'll see if we bounce back up to 38. Supermicro is showing some weakness. We need to get back above at least 35 to remain bullish. We could be coming back down to fill this gap if we don't. So watch 32.8. If that holds, we could be looking for a bounce move. If it doesn't, we could be dipping to fill this gap back down to the low 32s, and we'll see if we rebound. For others out there, such as Palantir, it's looking a little bit weak here. It did push initially only to come back down. So we need to hold at least 116. If not, we dip towards like 113 and we'll see if we bounce. Might be a small dip to 113 if this doesn't hold, especially with this bearish. There's a slight bearish divergence on the smaller time frames, like on the 30 minutes time frame. For Rivian, nice gap up, but there is a gap to fill below. So I'll be watching to see if it comes down. It might come down a bit to fill this gap, and we'll see if we bounce. So keep that in mind. For SoFi, we're hitting some tough resistance right now around this 14 to 14.5 area. So we'll see if we form like a wick like this before coming back down. And if we don't hold 13.8, we're looking for a move back down towards 13.5 in this gap fill, and we'll see if we bounce or not. AMD has a tough resistance at 110, so we'll see if we break. If not, we could be dipping back down to fill this gap towards this 102 area, and we'll see if we bounce. So give it some time. For ARM, we're looking bullish. If we break 125, we're looking for a bigger push. If we reject here, we're looking for a move back down to 120. We'll see if buyers defend or not. But I could see us actually dipping towards 120, so watch to see what the move happens to look like. PayPal has a rejection structure here. It did pump very nicely, but I'm looking to see if this is a rejection. If we don't hold 71.5, we're looking for that gap fill back down to 70. For Coinbase, I think there's some big news that came out that Coin is going to be replacing Discover Finances on the S&P 500. So now it's exploding. Could be looking for 230 plus very soon when we open. So it has some upside potential, but we'll see if it holds 230 or not. Amazon's doing a good job at holding up, to watch some tough resistance at 210. If that breaks, we're looking for 212. If we don't break 210, we could be turning back down to 205 or below. So be careful. For Meta is once again looking like it has 640 as resistance. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for 650 as our next area. If not, we could turn back down. I'm going to be looking to see how well we hold here because this is a tough resistance right here. We also have previous resistance right here historically at this 640 area, so it might be kind of tough to break through that. We'll see if we hold above 640 or not. We might temporarily push, but if CPI is a little hot, this could cool off, so we'll see about that. Microsoft is a bit more bullish, but it does look like it has a tough resistance near 450. Might consolidate here, maybe turn a little bit if we don't hold support, so be very careful. Google is looking strong. We need to hold 159.46. If that holds, we're looking for an attempt to get up to 162. If we end up losing 156, though, we're dipping back down to fill this gap, but there is a little bit of upside potential on this chart. So we'll see how CPI treats this, but there is upside potential on it. DJT might be dipping towards this gap fill at 25. The VIX is bearish for now, but keep in mind, there is still, or at least there's still technically a bullish divergence on it. I'm still seeing it on the MACD. So that could lead to some upside, possibly, but that depends on CPI. The 10 year is kind of flat. It's not really reacting as much. It actually went up after we got this news about China. The dollar is also taking off. So that is typically not the best for the markets. But right now, there's no confirmation of anything quite yet. So for now, SPY is technically bullish, and we could be looking for a 585 retest possibly. But we're going to see, can SPY hold 585? Can the QQQ try to get back above 510? Or do we get some kind of pullback from here, right? You want to be prepared for anything with CPI coming out. So the best thing I'll tell you is just be very patient. I'll give you guys another update on CPI. There is some more upside potential, a bit more, especially if SPY gets to 585, but then be very careful because it's going to be a very tough resistance, and I can't promise you if we're going to break it yet. So we'll see how well we hold up over there. We'll see what CPI looks like. We have some mixed data with the fact that crude futures went down, but our overall gas prices did go up just a little bit. So mixed data for CPI. We'll see what ends up happening, and I'm going to be very patient nonetheless. I am giving you guys a warning though about this, about how the market's at a tough resistance. So you want to be careful up here. That's the best thing I can tell you. So be patient and we'll see how it ends up going. We called this move up. I said this since yesterday. I was expecting this after the trade talks were coming. And with that being said, I just appreciate you guys so much for listening. Please enjoy your night, guys. Enjoy your evening. And I'll be back with another upload tomorrow morning before market open. Until then, have a good one and peace out.